Hello everybody, how's it going? I'm the Meister and welcome back to Aubrey City. In this episode, guys, we are going to be constructing the downtown residential district. And in the last episode, I gave you guys the choice of what kind of architecture we're going to go for this district. And you guys, I can tell you for the most part, have chosen the Brooklyn, New York style building. So out of almost 300 of you guys, 54% chose the Brooklyn, New York style. And there's also a good 22% who chose the pre-World War II colonial style housing. And that's what I was sort of hoping that would win, but unfortunately, well, not unfortunately for you guys, we're gonna go with the Brooklyn style. But you know, it's not a huge deal, and I think it's gonna look pretty awesome regardless. You know, that's just democracy, right? So I've laid down this sort of road pattern here. It's sort of going to be the main streets within this district, and there's going to be smaller streets laid around those. And what I'm going to do right now is, in the previous episode, I plopped down this old hospital, and I guess we could sort of say that was the old hospital before the new research center / hospital was built. And so I'm going to just add a little bit onto that, make a nice parking lot in the back, and just spruce it up a little bit, make it fit a little nicer into the area. And then we're going to move on to actually building the residential section of this district. Okay guys, so here you get to see me struggle for a few minutes to build an off-ramp going directly to the hospital. And I think just because of the road configuration I have going on here, it makes it a lot harder due to two intersections being really close together. So yeah, I struggle with this for a couple of minutes. I sort of get something that looks half decent, I suppose. And yeah. I guess the main usage for this little off-ramp is going to be citizens coming from another part of town that maybe take this road will take this little off-ramp to come back home. But I guess we could say that at one point it was a vital connection to the hospital, and now with the old hospital not being used as the main city hospital, it doesn't really serve that much of a big purpose anymore, except for maybe the residents returning home, like I said. So here you can see pretty much what I came up with. So moving on, I thought this intersection was just a little too plain for my liking, so I'm going to add a little bit of detail, you know, add some more pleasing lines, and it's a lot more challenging than I thought it would be when creating these little intersections. It's something that I recently started to do. I started to do quite a bit off camera as well, just experimenting with different highway interchanges and playing around with some different line options that are available in the workshop. And to be honest, it's pretty challenging at some places because the way that the roads connect, the width of the road can be a little different in places, and it just makes it hard to get it so it doesn't look all weird and lopsided. But yeah, I mean, it's not too bad, I guess. If you look at it from a distance, it's not too difficult to get something to look half decent, I suppose. So now we're going to work a little bit on some landscaping and add some details to the surroundings of the hospital. After that, we're going to move on to the residential section of this district. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I downloaded a new texture. It's called New Caledonia. It just came out not too long ago in the workshop. And it's an HD texture, so it looks way better than the one I had before. The one I had before, I think it was called Realistic or something. And at the time it came out, it was pretty good, but compared to what's out on the workshop now, I mean, it was starting to show its age. So I decided to bite the bullet and get a new texture, and it took me a little while to find the right one. But this is the one that I chose, and I'm super happy with it. The cliffs look a lot more realistic. First of all, the grass is a lot more highly detailed. As you can see now, it blends in perfectly with the trees on the bottom there. So you guys know that we're aiming for realism in Aubrey City, and it helps. It greatly helps with that. So anyways, moving on now, guys. I'm now going to start to work on the actual residential section, and I'm just zoning out my stuff here. Along the main avenue in the center here is going to be mostly commercial with a little bit of residential here and there. One thing I sort of forgot to do was to actually select the building style for this area. In the zoning tool, as you can see here, the part that I'm working on is part of downtown, and the housing style using the theme manager wasn't quite right. So I'm just going to go ahead and edit that right away, and there's going to be a specific theme for this area. So as I mentioned in the start of the video, most of you guys chose the Brooklyn style architecture for this area. But there's still a good 25% that chose the colonial or American style architecture, and that's sort of what I was hoping that would win. But regardless, I mean, I'm really happy with what you guys chose. So what I decided to do, just to make everybody happy, was I'm gonna make the area 75% Brooklyn style and a little 25% colonial American style. As you guys saw, there's a little division in the district, so that's where the separation is going to be from the Brooklyn and the American style buildings. So yeah, here I just took a couple minutes and I reorganized the building style for this area, so I'm just regrowing the whole thing. I decided to keep a couple of the houses that were already there and just make a sort of blend. So as I've mentioned before, most of these houses are going to be college dorms. As you can see, the university is right across the street. So there's not going to be any fancy housing in this district. It's mostly going to be little dorms and little apartments. One thing that I've done before starting this episode was I reorganized the trail system around this district. I had a trail cutting right across the district going right to university, and it wasn't really going to fit, so I destroyed the whole thing and I reorganized it in a way that it keeps its efficiency. So the trail cuts in between some of the buildings through the backyards of the apartment buildings, so it's pretty efficient. In a person can walk all the way from the coast of downtown right to university without having to walk along a street for very long. You can just take the entire trail right to the university. So I'm hoping that's going to encourage bike traffic and people walking as well. As you can see, the trail system is right here. So yeah, we'll see a bit later on once this area starts to develop. So the district, which is called Robin Square at the moment, if you guys would like me to change the name, just leave a comment below. It's starting to shape up pretty well. One thing though that I dislike is these buildings here, these Brooklyn buildings, were released quite a while ago, probably like 2 years ago. They are starting to show their age a little bit because of all the vanilla props and the vanilla trees that are in them. So using the prop replacement mod, I was able to change those trees out for some newer workshop trees, and it looks much better. I've used the prop replacement tool many times in Aubrey City so far, and it's a really useful tool. If you guys aren't familiar with it, basically what it allows you to do is swap out any prop or any tree that's on a particular building or on a particular land, and swap it out with a different one. So you have a list of all the props that are on the building at the moment, and then you have an entire list of all the trees or props that you want to replace it with. It's pretty easy to use. I use it all the time. So the area is pretty much built up now, and I can focus a little bit more on adding details. But I have to mention that now that downtown is complete, I'm gonna focus a little bit less on detailing and a lot more on the actual functionality and the look of the city. The reason I wanted to add so much detail to downtown is because it's an area of high focus. It's usually the area that most people pay most attention to. So for residential areas, it's not really something that I have to pay too much attention to. Most buildings will come with some pretty decent props already in them, so that's one of the reasons. But don't get me wrong, guys, there are some areas of high attention or high detail that are going to come in the next couple of episodes, such as the stadium, and I'm also going to build an airport eventually. There's probably going to be 2 airports in Aubrey City, a municipal and an international airport, so you can expect that. Also around highways and very major roads, I like to add some details such as signs and barriers and different sort of things. Those are the areas of expertise that I like to add more detail to. So Also guys, please forgive me if the game's a little laggy in this episode. I'm playing at max speed most of this episode, and it does affect my FPS quite a bit. In the near future, I'm looking to upgrade my CPU. Right now I'm running an i5 4690K, and I'd like to upgrade to at least an i7 4790K. So I'm hoping that it's going to improve my FPS. At least, you know, I'd be happy with like an extra 5 or 10 FPS in the game. Because no matter what, even if you're running a friggin' Xenon CPU, it's going to be quite taxing on the system. Just because of the nature of the game. So yeah, you should expect that in the near future. It's, you know, mid-August right now, so probably like mid-September, October. I'm thinking of upgrading, so we'll see. Because it's not cheap. It's like, I think it's like $400 Canadian. In the States, you guys are so lucky when it comes to PC part prices. I mean, just for an example, the average price, I'd say, for a new 1080 graphics card is about $1,000 with tax. So the card itself is like $800 or $900, and you're obviously going to pay like $100 to $200 on tax on top of that. So it's pretty crazy. So that's why some of my parts I order directly from the States, but then you have to pay shipping fees, and the exchange rate's not that great right now. So yeah, it's not really fun. Alright guys, so now I'm going to mix things up a little bit. Rather than having the entire district be the same style of buildings, I want to create something a little bit different. So I'm going to be adding, first of all, these little side-by-side, wall-to-wall buildings here. I think they fit quite nicely in the area. And in a second here, I'm going to move on, and in the second part of our district here, the colonial American style, is I'm going to build a little 50s or 60s style apartment complex, as you're seeing on my screen right now. It's a little bit difficult when I have all those zones there. I have to get rid of them and plop these down. Again, they're using the Rico mod. I'm able to create these pretty cool apartment complexes here. Alright guys, so our residential district is shaping up quite nicely. I think it fits pretty well close to downtown Aubrey. The only thing I find, it's a little too flat to be really close to downtown. So what I end up doing in a second here is I end up raising the building level limit. That's something you can do with the theme manager mod, and as you can see here, there's a whole bunch of buildings that are upgrading. So I was hoping that it would plop up a few extra little medium-sized skyscrapers. So in this case, it actually did, and I think it makes the district look that much better. So I'm just going to add a few finishing touches, connecting a few little trails, and we're just about going to be done here, and we're going to be moving on to the final part of the episode, which is deciding on what's going to happen in the next episode. And thankfully for you guys, I think it should be pretty interesting. I'm pretty excited myself because it involves, again, transportation. And to be more specific, road transportation. That's something that we haven't focused on too much in these past few episodes. So I'm pretty excited to get back into it. And because yeah, highways are my expertise. That's what I enjoy doing the most in City Skylines. So yeah, we're gonna get back into that. I really like these old colonial houses and these shotgun houses. I think it was like a Detroit pack or a Philadelphia pack. I forget exactly what where I got those houses. I've had them for a little while now, but I think they look super awesome, especially in a downtown area where everything is so condensed one against each other. It adds that that feeling of being close to downtown. Anyways, guys, that concludes this episode of Aubrey City. I really hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for voting in the last episode. You know, I'm actually really happy that you guys chose the Brooklyn style district. I actually think it fits a lot better than I thought it would in the beginning, so thank you guys for that. So anyways, without further ado, let's get into next episode's details and what is going to transpire from then. Okay guys, so here's the deal. Here we have one of Aubrey City's main highways leading into downtown and to the industrial port. So right now in its state, I just laid it down there just to provide access to the city, and this is not what it's gonna look like at all once we're done. So the basic question I have for you guys is this highway section going to be elevated or sunken? Meaning if it's sunken, it's going to be literally sunken into the ground, and if it's elevated, it's going to be just a really long bridge going across the whole section. So the good thing about an elevated section is it's going to be easier to build. It's just a really long straight line. It's relatively easy to build on and off ramps. I think it would require less time as well to build. The only downside is this area is up on a hill, okay, so it doesn't really make sense to build a bridge on land that's going up, so it would require a lot of terraforming in this case to get it to look right. Obviously in this case, if you know, real engineers would be involved, a sunken highway would make a lot more sense. But because Aubrey City is an aesthetic city, I guess, if we're playing the game aesthetically, we can sort of do whatever we want, regardless if it makes sense or not. So those were the pros and cons of building a elevated highway in this case. Now for the sunken highway, a pro would be, because this area is on a hill, it would be easier to terraform the area. So, you know, I just have to dig the highway right straight through the land, and I wouldn't have to raise any of the terrain around it or anything like that. It would be relatively easier to lay the framework of the highway down. The only con about that is sunken highways are a lot more challenging to build than raised highways. Because of the on and off ramps have to be on a slant on each side of the highway going up a hill. It makes it a lot more challenging to build. Thankfully, we have so many mods right now that enables you to create large highway infrastructure a lot easier than, for example, when I created this interchange back in, I think it was like episode 3 or 4. That was a huge challenge. So yeah, those are the pros and cons for building a sunken highway. So I'm gonna leave it up to you guys. Now in my opinion, it makes a lot more sense to build a sunken highway just because of the terrain, but because we're playing this game aesthetically, I would actually prefer a raised highway. I think it would look a lot cooler. Just to give you guys a better idea too, maybe to give you guys a picture of what the area is gonna look like. Just below the highway here, that's going to be a sort of retail section. So there's going to be, you know, there's going to be a bunch of typical retail chain stores, but there's also going to be a lot of smaller commercial areas too, so little shops. Keep in mind that the area is going to be run down a little bit more than the rest of the city. It's going to be, you know, down on some hard times. There's going to be a lot of dollar store, family-run businesses. So it just gives you a general idea of what the area is going to look like. And the reason why I wanted to build a elevated section is because the grunge and the grime, I wanted to create this sort of grungy area under the bridge, and I think that would look really cool. But I'm leaving it up to you guys. If you choose to build a sunken highway, which engineeringly makes a lot more sense, I'm all for that as well. I'm completely open, guys. Aubrey City is your city just as much as it's mine, so I'm leaving you guys up with the decision. So with that being said, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm really excited to get into the next episode. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also subscribe to my channel for much more content on the way. And until the next episode, guys, please take care.